The Atlantic rainforest is one of the most biodiverse areas in the world. It's located along the east coast of Brazil and it houses over 20,000 species of plants, 2,200 species of birds and over 320 species of mammals, many of which cannot be found anywhere else in the world. While this area is amazing, it looks nothing compared to what it could be. This place was very close to Darwin's heart. However, in the past 200 years, much of the forest range has been lost. Over 80% of this forest is now gone, following threats including illegal logging, the expansion of pastureland, and urban sprawl. The Atlantic forest area that still remains is highly fragmented, for example cut up by roads, oil pipelines, and the pasture. While much of this unique area has been destroyed, it is not too late. Hope remains of conserving and restoring this area to make sure that no further biodiversity is lost. There are still people working very hard to preserve this forest. This is their story. Hard work to conserve the Atlantic forest is highly necessary, since it is one of the most threatened ecosystems in the world.
One of the major threats to the Atlantic forest is exactly the habitat loss, and it's caused by the deforestation, the intense deforestation we have. And also the deforestation not only makes this habitat loss, but also fragments the habitat. The major impacts of the fragmentation is because it divides a landscape which was once unique and only forest fragment into several smaller pieces of land. So it makes it more difficult for animal groups, animal species to move throughout the landscape.
Indeed, over the past 200 years, much of the Atlantic forest has disappeared, practically creating an archipelago of little islands of forest divided by impenetrable roads, a 187-kilometer pipeline for oil and petrol, as well as pasture and agriculture. The fragmentation of the landscape into smaller pieces causes a significant issue for many mammals.
A importância da conectividade é para facilitar o movimento dos animais de uma área para outra, né? Porque a gente considera que até 100 metros, por exemplo, o mico consegue passar de um lado para o outro. Mas a gente tem animais que não passam, né? Por exemplo, alguns marsupiais que não atravessam de um lado para o outro porque o espaço é muito grande. Então, com a conectividade, a gente garante que todos eles vão ter local mais seguro para estar atravessando.
A habitat of adequate size, in this case a landscape where the individual pieces of fragmented forest are connected, is vital to support wildlife access to, for example, food, water and shelter. One example of a mammal that is affected by fragmentation is the Maine sloth. With a head not too dissimilar to a coconut, the Maine sloth is an iconic species of the Atlantic forest. It is endemic to the area, meaning that it cannot be found elsewhere in the world. Deforestation can create a gap within the landscape that is too large for an individual to cross. As follows, Maine sloths can become isolated from other groups and individuals, endangering the genetic diversity and ultimately the resilience of the population. When an individual does attempt to cross a gap between two habitats, they are more vulnerable to threats. For example, when they attempt to cross a busy road, or when an empty patch leaves them vulnerable to predators. They may also lose their way. As if to illustrate this point, a Maine sloth was recently found stranded between two patches of forest, trying to cross from one to the other. Continuing deforestation is not only detrimental to biodiversity, it is also harmful to the people of Brazil. The Atlantic forest is home to approximately 70% of Brazil's population and generates between 70 to 80% of Brazil's gross domestic product. Deforestation continues to threaten this ecosystem, and it is vital that work is being done to protect biodiversity for both people and nature. In the next video, we will discover what is currently being done to ensure that the habitat of the Maine sloth and many other species, including the golden lion tamarin, is maintained and restored.